I'm Corrie Wilder, Education Leadership Doctoral Student at Washington State University. And today, I'll share with you a proposal to study the impact of two positive psychological traits, optimism and grit, on the current state of student satisfaction at the Everett campus of Washington State University. We begin with the year 2020. What is there to say, really? Is there a rating less than 0 stars? Many of us have struggled with the sudden changes to our environment and routine in the wake of COVID-19. The pandemic has created a sense of uncertainty and stress that is a continuous test of our psychological endurance. Yet, some people seem to overcome these obstacles with grace and high spirits. These people are always calm through the chaos, and they meet the year's steady stream of unpleasant news with a nod toward better days ahead. This phenomenon is especially prevalent among college students. The nearly 300 students currently enrolled at the Everett campus of Washington State University, just like college students across the globe, had their worlds turned upside down due to COVID-19. The pandemic compounded already existing academic challenges with health concerns, family obligations, and financial difficulty. The campus was forced to close its doors in March of 2020. Faculty made a rapid shift from in-person classes to distance delivery. This is a significant change. We went from monitored learning to a self-regulated environment, and from an active social setting to a relatively isolated existence. WSU Everett is a campus that caters to transfer students in the North Puget Sound region. About 300 students have selected this new campus for an in-person campus experience that's close to home and work. Unlike the self-regulated nature of online courses, these students choose to take in-person classes because they like the accountability, they develop stronger connections with other students and professors, and feel a personal tie to the university. So when the campus made the pivot to distance delivery, some students seem to just fare better than others. And as the academic year wears on, the more apparent the difference becomes. Student A, for example, has a positive attitude, regularly participates in class, and turns in all assignments. The unexpected switch to a distance delivery model doesn't seem to affect the general performance or engagement of this type of student at all. If anything, the novelty of no commute to campus, coupled with a new way to learn, has strengthened their resolve. In contrast, Student B displays marked behavior changes, academic challenges, and high levels of mental health distress resulting from COVID-19. They find distance learning to be complicated and impersonal. They feel remote education is inferior to the face-to-face experience they chose for themselves when they originally enrolled at the university. What is it that stresses out some students and doesn't stress out others? What makes some people thrive in the face of obstacles when some just barely survive? How do some people seem to always be able to make lemonade out of lemons? Let's focus on the positive behaviors we observe among the student A's, the behaviors we'd probably characterize as hopeful or future-focused. These students go out of their way to cultivate what's best within themselves and to enhance their experiences in life. Positive psychology theory is the study of these favorable behaviors and their impact on human happiness, flourishing, and life satisfaction. Now, two positive psychological traits in particular, optimism and grit, have been studied extensively with respect to academic achievement and life satisfaction. In fact, a recent study of 2,000 students at George Washington University suggests that optimism and grit are correlated with and predictive of general life satisfaction. Way back in the mid-1980s, two doctors of psychology, Michael Shire and Charles Carver, gave people who appear to be universally positive in any situation the designation of optimist. Their research indicates that optimism is an enduring, measurable psychometric property, and that optimism is a predictor of other behaviors. Now, grit, a concept made famous in 2006 by MacArthur Genius Grant winner Angela Duckworth, focuses on perseverance and a passion for long-term goals. Grit, just like optimism, is also a measurable psychometric property. We've all heard the expression, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Well, Duckworth's research reveals that those with higher levels of grit are more likely to be high achievers, over and above raw talent, and even when they're faced with challenges. So, we know that grit and optimism and satisfaction are all part of this lemonade making process in general. But while numerous studies do show correlation between these variables, it's important that we consider the context within which we study these relationships. Our current situation is a unique context, and it is unlike any shared catastrophe many have experienced since 9/11. The pandemic is, without question, the most notable mass trauma event of the decade. My study aims to achieve a greater understanding of the direct relationship between prospective behavior and student satisfaction with their education during the pandemic. We can potentially use this knowledge to help undergraduates flourish through future hardship and improve academic performance. Educational leaders may be able to tap into this data to combat attrition and increase graduation rates. Specifically, this study will explore whether optimism and grit are predictors of satisfaction among students enrolled at WSU Everett during the 2020-2021 academic year. We know that optimism and grit are measurable, positive psychological constructs, and we're going to need to measure these traits in our population. Fortunately, there are validated tools already developed that measure the levels of each. Shire and Carver's Revised Life Orientation Test, or LOT-R, is a 10-item scale that measures how optimistic or pessimistic people feel about the future. And the GRIT-S, or Short Grit Scale, is an 8-item scale that Duckworth and colleagues developed to measure the extent to which individuals can maintain focus and interest and persevere in obtaining long-term goals. To collect data, I'll distribute a survey including the 10-item LOT-R, the 8-item GRIT-S, and an additional 15 student satisfaction items to all WSU Everett students enrolled in the 2020-2021 academic year. No sampling is needed, as we will include all students currently enrolled. Student services staff will distribute anonymous links to the Qualtrics survey via WSU email. We will open the survey in early April 2021. Participants can complete the survey online at their leisure within a roughly 4-week window. At the end of April 2021, email reminders will be sent to non-responders every 2 days until the survey closes in early May. In addition to obtaining IRB exemption, we'll obtain consent from WSU Everett administration, and data collection procedures will be compliant with the privacy policy of the university. And finally, participants will be incentivized with a Bar Greens Coffee Bar discount coupon upon survey completion. Once the data is collected, a quantitative data analysis will unveil exactly what, if any, measurable correlation between grit, optimism, and student satisfaction exists. I'll employ prior empirical findings and theory to guide the development of the data analytic plan. I do conceptualize grit and optimism as the independent variables that serve as potential predictors of student satisfaction. And factor analysis will be conducted first to establish the relationship between the variables. Then we'll perform a multiple regression analysis to examine whether optimism and grit are unique or overlapping correlates of student satisfaction. It's important to note that context is key when measuring student behavior. While the variables may show positive correlation under the current circumstances, future individual or collective hardships may lead to different results. As we know, humans, much like the weather, are complex and somewhat unpredictable. Additionally, this study population is limited to a single, small urban campus in the Pacific Northwest, so we cannot generalize the results to undergraduates everywhere. That said, Exploring the correlation between optimism, grit, and satisfaction in WSU Everett students during this particular period of volatility is useful to academia in a number of ways. First, it shines a spotlight on mental health in higher education communities. Second, a positive correlation makes the case for program development to help students strengthen their levels of grit and optimism, which may serve to increase student satisfaction. And finally, should interventions prove successful on a local level, they can serve as models for other higher education communities. In sum, even an experience that is traumatizing presents an opportunity for growth. We know that optimism and grit are teachable skills. We also know that high levels of these traits are predictors of achievement and the ability to overcome obstacles. Understanding the relationship between optimism, grit, and satisfaction among WSU Everett students may communicate ways to help future students thrive in the face of sudden changes to their accustomed learning environments. And after all, everyone loves a tall, sweet glass of lemonade.